Right, 8:17. Let's talk business now, and the business of young adults who are getting into the job market, finding themselves in a very difficult spot, as though it's not difficult enough to find the job of your choice. So you've got to go through all the studies and then actually get employed. Now, expectations of financial support from family does creep in, very often is the case, as soon as employment is found. You haven't even got your foot in the door properly. You probably haven't even got your first paycheck, and already you've got the family coming out the woodwork and knocking on the door. Maya Fisher-French, morning to you. Personal finance coach, of course, joining us. Forgive me as I take a sip of water. I don't want to cough in everyone's ear this morning, because this is not just a financial issue, Maya. It's very much emotional as well, and a bit of guilt, I think, can come into this. Can't it? Morning.
Good morning, Gareth. You know, it's so interesting. I was listening to a radio station the other day, and there were these young people phoning in talking about the loans that they had taken to help family, and they were all saying the day they got their first job, they took out a loan to help the family. And one young man was saying, you know, my parents needed to tile the kitchen and I took a 7,000 Rand loan. And I was listening to this and I was wondering, you know, it was very interesting to me that was the sense that the first thing I do when I start working is I borrow money to help my family. And Gareth, I sort of wondered where in this conversation was that, you know what, if I just save for 6 months, I can help you. I don't have to always borrow immediately as soon as I start working. And I think for me, I realized that there was a sort of disconnect, an expectation of, you know, you start working today, you help today, instead of saying, give me 6 months, give me a year, and then I can help you in a sustainable way.
I can't help but wonder, and maybe this is a conversation we can have another week when we talk about financial issues again, is someone who's in a first job, which is the example you're using here. Someone gets into their first gig, it's their first job, probably not earning an awful amount of money. I always wonder, how responsible is it for a bank or a credit provider to be giving someone as a first-time employee access to a credit line, because you have no idea the trouble you can get yourself into.
My biggest bugbear, right? They go to the universities and give credit cards to students. So absolutely, it is something that I find it very difficult. I just wish that when a young person went to the bank for the first time, they're getting their salary, they're opening the bank account, the bank said, why don't you open up an emergency fund? Or let me show you our amazing savings tools. Now, I'll just give you a great example. You know, maybe you've come here for a 10,000 Rand loan, which you'll pay off over 12 months. Do you know that loan's going to cost you 3,500 Rand in fees and interest? You're going to pay us back about 13,500 Rand. Do you know, dear customer, that if you saved the monthly installment of 1,150 Rand that you would have paid to us into a savings account, you'll have the money in 8 months? You know, where are those conversations, Gareth? Because that's what a young person needs to know. That's exactly what they need to know.
I remember a very old story. I think I may have recited this to you in years past around a similar topic. There was a young lady in the bank queue in front of me. This is many years ago, and I don't think she could have been out of university, was applying for a second credit card to pay off her first credit card. And can you believe it, over the ATM counter, over the till, she was actually given the credit card, and you can imagine how much trouble she was in. But now let's go back around to the family issue here and the not having loans. So we spoke about the emotional side of this. How do we help young people to support the family without actually getting themselves into financial distress? Because once you're on that roller coaster, you can't get off of it.
I think the first thing is not to take on debt immediately. And I think having that conversation with your family, saying, you know what, it doesn't make sense for me to pay back the bank all this money if I can just wait and save towards things. And I think that's very important. Gareth, a lot of people don't actually understand how much credit's costing them. They just don't even understand it. And I think if they could just have that understanding and say to the family, I will, once I'm on my feet, once I can save some money, be there for you. The other thing is really to put it in as part of your budget. So, you know, we always speak about budgeting, about knowing where your money goes on this show. Say, right, I can commit, I've done my budget, I can commit this amount every month to support you, and I will commit that. But I can't do more than that. That's kind of the line in the sand for me. Otherwise, I start to drown. So I think that's very important. And Gareth, something I've come across quite frequently recently, which I really, really like, is I found some young people are helping their family to help themselves. So one man came to me and he said, you know, his sister and brother kept asking him for money, and he bought them a popcorn machine. And he said, there you go. go sell popcorn. They were still at school, and so they could sell popcorn at school. He would sell their popcorn at work for them. And I think find ways to perhaps empower your family to go and make their own money, so that you're not sitting there as the ATM, knocking on the door. So I think those are some of the ways that you can also sort of deal with the challenges.
And that might be a topic for us for another week as well. Family investments. How can you invest in a family idea, help them grow their own finances while also not getting yourself into the dwang, but also might make a bit of a business out of it? There's an idea maybe for next time as well. Maya Fisher-French as well. And we all feel the pressure from the parents. We all feel the pressure from the loved ones, especially those ones that come out the woodwork. Suddenly there's family members you didn't know about coming out of various provinces of the country. But don't fall into it, especially if you're new into the job market, because Maya, absolutely right. Maya Fisher-French, Maya on Money. You have no idea, especially if you're new into the job market, how much you're spending on credit and how much you're really paying back in the end.